And welcome to the next Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. So this character is very highly contentious amongst the player base because their base kit's actually not bad, but their FR is arguably one of the worst in the game, and yet I'm going to be pulling for it anyway. That character is Fujin, and if you'd like to find out more about Fujin, about the event that comes along with her, Caius as well, and also why I'm pulling for Fujin, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Now, before we get started, I would like you guys to have a look at my social media accounts all down below if you would like to, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon. And unfortunately, as I am making this video, my internet service provider has dropped my internet for the last couple of days. So if this video is a little later than usual or you haven't seen me on stream for the past few days, I would like to say I'm very sorry for that. But I would also like to spin a more positive note on the fact that I went to Twitch London over the weekend and met some fantastic content creators, and some big shout outs go out to all the people I met there, including the wonderful people at Final Fantasy Union. Absolute delight to be around, so I look forward to seeing them again in the future. I do always shout out one of my patrons over on Patreon every time I release a brand new video, and today is no different, and that person is going to be Kovacs, who has Celeste as their title card. A massive thank you goes out to you and to all of the people out there that support this channel. A massive thank you goes out to all of you. Now, despite the fact that I am probably not going to recommend Fujin to a lot of people, I'm just going to put that out there now, I will be pulling for Fujin regardless, and that is because we have met the first goal for my donation drive to get to San Diego TwitchCon, because I've had such amazing experiences meeting other content creators. I just want to keep that train going, but obviously it's very expensive for me to get to the US from the UK, so if that's something you'd be interested in, then definitely come and join in on Twitch, and there's lots of fun little events and stuff that we have planned for that. So that's why I'll be pulling for Fujin. And of course, lastly, don't forget to check out all of the content creators and resources out there for Dissidia Opera Omnia, as there's so many out there and they all deserve your love too. So let's get to looking at some of these characters then, shall we? So the first thing we're going to be looking at is what exactly is on these banners, and we're going to be taking a look at Fujin, her brand new FR, and the return of the rest of her kit. Caius will be getting a rework and his C90, as well as the return of his BT, and then we're also going to be getting Sid along for the ride as well, for those like me that missed his LD the first time around. Now, obviously, there is an alternative banner here. If you already have Caius BT, or you don't particularly care about Caius BT, there is an alternative here that has Gabranth BT on it as well. So if you're wanting to have a last shot at that, which is probably where I will be going, then there's a banner there for you as well. So let's take a look at Caius. So first things first, big shout outs to MIDIU for their translations over on Reddit. Without you, I would be completely lost when coming to researching on these things. So it's very valuable information. So his rework is going to basically just give you HP dumps. It's nothing crazy, it's nothing particularly super duper, but he's not really well known for his damage capabilities as much. Like, he gets 3 HP dumps on Pulsar Burst, 2 on Eye of Bahamut, which isn't great by today's standards, but of course his Doom debuff is what we're primarily knowing him for, and now he does have splash damage on Eye of Bahamut, which is something, at least, that's a bit better than what he had before. His LD is also now going to have 6 HP dumps on it. He's going to get increases on his bravery damage and HP damage against enemies that are hit with his debuffs, and it also means that the duration of his debuffs is extended through his buff that he gets from his LD, which is useful because Doom Chaos is a thing. You do still have to bear in mind, though, that Caius is very cloggy with his debuffs. None of them are super crazy powerful debuffs except for the Doom one, and even then, like, you can honestly live without a lot of these things. His EX does get a nice increase here because you get AoE delay on it now, 5 HP dumps. Bear in mind that this is a guaranteed launch, so that's a thing to bear in mind. Once you're getting like 7 HP dumps off of it, and it finally gets its recast rate increased as well, so that's very useful. Caius is nice, like, he's a nice character. If you already have him, it's one of those situations where it's nice to be able to pull him back out again if you haven't used him in a while and you already have him greened from the first time around. Would I go pulling for Caius right now, though? Probably not. Like, there's not a huge amount that's massively necessary for him, but he's a nice character to have if you already have him. Okay then, so let's now talk about Fujin and what it is about Fujin that people like, what it is about Fujin that they don't. So, Fujin does get a rework here, as well we expected from her. She gets 3 HP dumps on both Sai Plus, Metsu, and Metsu Plus. So, that means that she's going to do a little bit of extra damage just off the cuff, but she now guarantees launches off of the plus versions of her skills, which you're always going to be using. You never use the basic one. So Fujin's main thing, apart from launching, is that she's one of very, very few wind enchanters. The only other real option being Bart's, who at this point really isn't very strong. Because he's just not dealing the HP damage. His time in the sun has definitely come to a sundown at this point in time. So Fujin's kind of your only other real option for wind enchantment. So you get those HP dumps from her rework. Her LD is now a 5 HP dumping attack as well, and you now get more bravery recovery to the party from the gusts buff that you get from it. Basically, whenever you hit weakness damage, which you will be because you'll be enchanting imperiling for wind if you're using Fujin, you get bravery battery out of it as well, so you get a larger amount of bravery, and you get party-wide HP damage up as well. All nice so far. Fujin C90. Also really nice. Now you get 4 HP dumps on it. You get the delay, AoE delay on it, which you had to rely on her AA for before now, which was a little bit rubbish. But then you get launch off of this as well. So her launching capabilities are spread much wider than just the EX. You get it from her regular skills now as well. And it just means that you get lots and lots of damage out of it. So 6 HP dumps from an EX with a half decent charge rate. Also nice. Not only that, but you get a trap out of it as well. Like, Fujin's always had a trap that came off of her EX, so what you get out of it now is HP dumps. So this means that she makes a half-decent off-turn attacker as well, by having 3 HP dumps that guarantees a launch on that target when the next character acts. So, actually, when you add it all up, Fujin's base kit is actually really quite nice. Her AA also has HP dump in it now, which is also useful, considering it's an AoE delay. So what's wrong with Fujin? Why don't people like Fujin in this game as of this release? The problem is her FR. Her FR is, when you read it on paper, it doesn't sound that bad until you properly look at it. So her partner is Shadow, which is kind of nice. You get AoE delay and launch off of this as well. And force time, obviously, same as any other FR. The force time conditions, however, when a character does a wind attack command, which means that procs like wind slash or off-turn damage that would do wind damage aren't gonna proc it. It's only when you actually press a button that does wind damage. So yeah, you'll get that off of the wind enchant, but not as big as, say, like, it doesn't have the scope for potential like the likes of Kryl or Reno later down the line. And when self launches a target, you get 40%. Oh, this upsets me so much, because if any character launched, she'd be really good, like really good. But when you're having to contend with the likes of Selfie and things like that, you've got to really stand out as a launch character. And while I think it's cool that Fujin does have all of these extra bits, and I actually really like her base kit, her FR kind of sucks, and it's really upsetting because she's such a cool character, because it means that, like, yeah, you get 60% on Fujin's turn, but you're lucky if you get 20% or plus from anyone else's turn. And when you've got characters like Tidus and Kamlanort and Terra even, or other characters that do deal with off-turn damage, well, it's just not really good enough. So now let's have a quick look at the event that's going to come along with Fujin. And this is not a popular event, I'll just put it out there. The reason for this is we're going to be doing Heretic missions against the Heretic Flumen Dracos for the Shinryu. So the first thing you're going to notice is this. So big shout outs, of course, to DissidiaCompanion.com for all of their wonderful information. The first thing you're going to notice is that HP count. There are 2 of them, which means that is a full pool HP total of 180 million HP. These guys are tanky. Very tanky. So if you've fought these guys before, you'll know what kind of thing to expect from them. The actual mechanics of the fight isn't that bad. They're actually very, very simple enemies. They don't do a huge amount in terms of attacking you. They'll, throw an HP attack out if they get their bravery high enough, which they probably will do. But then past that, you don't have to worry too much. Once they get past a certain HP threshold, about 50%, they will start putting an aura up, though, that makes your turn delayed by 1 every time you act. So turn hoggers, etc., do be wary of this. Although characters like Kain and Freya and Cisne, or any characters that have off-turn damage, do enjoy this particular sort of aura, or any off-turn damage dealer. Obviously, enter Fujin here. So you can cancel this by dealing wind damage if you want to, so that's a way of getting around it. So honestly, a lot of people will probably be using Fujin calls because the basic Fujin call does actually have wind enchant for that character, but the only way of getting wind party-wide enchant is to use Fujin LD call. So what you get from the actual Shinryu mechanics here is first they start off with regens, and then they start resisting non-wind damage by 50%, and then once they start going to like 80% plus, it gets reduced very heavily. So not only do they have a massive amount of HP, they also resist bravery damage like crazy. And then when they do get their force time go off, they have a bravery floor, so their bravery cannot be reduced below 21,000. So you're definitely going to want some method of resisting HP damage, otherwise things are just going to fall over. Again, Freya is going to be helpful here if you don't want to take somebody like that, because while she's dealing damage up in the air, you also have party-wide last stand, so that might be something to consider. Otherwise, you have your Aurans, your Selfies, characters like that can make it so that you've got options in order to take less damage from them during their enemy force time. And because their HP is so high, even with your Camlanauts and Tiduses, you're probably not going to wipe them all out in one go. So that's something to consider. Yes, Camlanaut Tidus absolutely works. Camlanaut Tidus, Camlanaut Terra, Camlanaut Machina, they all absolutely work. And a lot of people, I feel, will probably crack them out for this particular fight so that they're not having to worry so much about damage, because as long as you do a dirty grey burst phase before they hit 50%, you'll be able to do a big old chunk of damage and make it so that the rest of the fight is a little bit less tedious. Tedious is the word when it comes to this fight. It's not that it's particularly hard, because the enemy mechanics are very simple. It's that it's long and it's arduous. I do think that Terra actually being released a bit early is helpful here, because she does a lot of brave gains before she does damage, as opposed to relying on a sort of like brave damage, so you don't have to worry so much about the force gauge effect. But it's still going to be a pain for her because of the delay aura and things like that. So without Fujin, it's a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's absolutely doable without her. It just might take a while. So next up we have Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and let everyone know whether you would pull on any given banner and why that may or may not be the case. Now sadly, I don't have a poll for you here because my internet has been down since before the weekend, and therefore I couldn't make one. However, using my phone, I did manage to get some comments from everybody, and a massive thank you goes out to my patrons for passing their comments over. I know it's a bit of a pain that I couldn't get the poll going or anything, but I do what I can so that I can make sure I can get some good content out for you guys as soon as the uploads are able to be done again. So let's go straight into those comments. Now, Sir Alex here says, I'm ticketing the FR, but I'm not maxing it regardless of Dare to Defy. Even though Fujin gets a decent rework, the FR's awful condition-wise, and even if one could argue that the very early ones like Kane's might be worse in the percentage, they were attached to much better units overall who are more worth a slot in the party. Unacceptable. This is kind of the suggestion from most players. Like, her kit is cool, but her FR is hot garbage, and it's really unfortunate because her kit's actually quite cool. If her FR had actually been better, she'd probably be a really powerful character to go alongside the likes of Selfie. Is she going to be better than Selfie? No, but if it triggered off of anyone's launches, she'd probably actually be really good. But she just got stuck in the past, and it just didn't really work for her. She only really works for herself, and it's just a real shame. But I still like her base kit. Gale says, personally, I'll be passing. Might as well stock up some resources since I've been a bit trigger happy with gems ever since Tidus's. I've already got Fujin's LD, and if I need someone to clog up the debuff slots while re-breaking, Gabranth is right there. Fujin doesn't really contribute anything I need with her FR, requiring her to launch. If I want that, Selfie's a much better option. Caius doesn't really help in that angle either. Pretty easy skip for me, all things considered. The fact that this is probably one of the very few comments I got about Caius at all goes to show how forgettable a lot of people consider him to be. He is actually very similar to Gabranth in terms of role. Like, obviously Gabranth doesn't carry Doom or anything, but they're both re-breaking units that carry very strong framed debuffs, but Gabranth's framed debuffs are at least stronger than Caius's, although Caius does have that break bonus extra. So there are reasons for either or, but if you've already got Gabranth or you're not really fussed about Gabranth, chances are you're probably not going to be that fussed about Caius either. Tree Void says I'm trying to collect all the LDs. I'm only missing 6 at this point, and Fujin and Sid from FS7 are 2 that I'm missing. Me too. So are we pulling? Just not sure whether tickets or gems. Fujin's kit is actually rather good now. Her trap follow having 3 HP dumps and guaranteeing a launch is nothing to scoff at. She also has a rather unique gimmick of providing the party battery whenever they hit any type of weakness damage. While her FR is rather lacking, she could be seen as a quite good budget unit given that she excels without the FR. One final note is that having her LD call for the party-wide wind enchant will be very useful for elemental FRs coming down the line such as Sabins. So I'll have a little bit of a confession here. Even though I have the goal for Fujin FR and to max it out and actually use it and use my resources on it, I was planning on throwing at least a few tickets at this banner because I don't have Sid either. And Fujin LD I don't have, and I would quite like to get it just to try to get Sabin's LD, because if you're looking, or FR rather, if you're looking at Sabin, Sabin's FR asks for wind and holy damage from the party as 2 separate conditions. So if you have a wind enchanter and a holy enchanter, you can actually proc that from your entire party. And Fujin's the only way to do that with a call ability, so that might be something worth bearing in mind. Would I recommend other people pull for Fujin just so that they can use Sabin? Only if you really, really love Sabin. And even then, you definitely don't need Fujin's FR to do that, just the LD. And then finally, Chamberlain Skexus says, I already have the full kit for both, but I would pull for Fujin up to her LD and get Caius' full kit. Fujin's damage all round is alright, but her FR is weak, mostly relying on Fujin herself to cause the knockbacks. The best thing about her is that she preps enemy for easy launches, and she's the only party wind enchant outside of Bartz's BT+. Caius, on the other hand, is a high priority as he provides really powerful debuffs, and his Chaos Doom debuff breaks or re-breaks enemies after their turn. With his BT effect activity, a 20% high party-wide HP damage cap up, HP damage up on 20% on debuffed enemies, and as long as enemies have Caius' debuffs, they'll be broken after his turn. He's not the most powerful, but his BT effect and debuffs really help you rack up damage. Again, I do believe that there's nothing outwardly wrong with Caius. If you already have him, you'll enjoy him again. But with units like Charlotta, Reno, Luna Freya, stuff like that, pretty close by in the future, I wouldn't personally throw resources at Caius this close to the release of characters like that. Fujin, sure, the fact that she is the only party-wide wind enchanter is something to her merit, and the fact that it translates to her call ability is very good. Because honestly, if FR era teaches us anything, and I've been saying this since call abilities first came out, pulling for call abilities actually isn't a bad idea. Sometimes it's really useful. So let us ask the big question. Should you be pulling for Fujin, Caius, maybe Sid? Now, there's nothing wrong with either of these two characters' base kits at the very least. As a matter of fact, Fujin's upgraded kit's actually pretty nice. So if you happen to already have her LD, you got something to look forward to at the very least. She can actually churn out some pretty nasty amounts of damage because of the fact that she now launches on practically everything. She's still the only wind enchanter outside of Bart's BT+, which, let's face it, is not the most reliable source of it. And this transfers over to her LD call, which is also useful. The fact that her EX-based trap now does HP dumps, and 3 of them to boot, means you could pair her up with the likes of Machina or something like that and get a lot of off-turn damage without really meaning to. So if you're looking at like picking up Sabin later on, which requires wind damage, you might want to consider picking up Fujin LD at the very least just to get hold of that. And Caius is still a solid character. I'd say that that's the best word I can use to describe him. There's nothing outwardly wrong with him outside of the fact that he is a framed debuff hog unit, so you're not going to pair him up with the likes of Gabranth, which is sad because he's probably the best FR you could pair him with thanks to his re-breaking capabilities. And that's kind of really it to say about him, to be honest. Like, he gets a good upgrade to his EX, he gets a good amount of HP dumps on that and his LD, although his other skills leave a little bit to be desired on that front. Doom is still pretty useful, and being able to re-break on every turn after his BT effect is active and get a big old Brave Battery for doing it, that's all good stuff. And of course we can't forget the fact that Fujin is going to be batterying your party, if she's in your party, pretty much every turn thanks to her weakness damage battery shenanigans that she does too. Her FR sucks. There's no two ways about it. The force conditions are really restrictive because they need her to be doing launching, and it needs to be a selected wind command in order for you to get anything out of that, which plays into neither the off-turn damage that she gets, nor the fact that she sets up launches for other characters. It's honestly a crying shame because the rest of her kit is really good. Just not good enough to make up for that FR, and the fact that she is still a attack-based support unit that doesn't have a BT either. So realistically, if you're going to be pulling for Fujin, it's to have access to her wind enchant, or you might want to play around with some wind shenanigans and just off-turn damage with other off-turn damage dealers, because you ain't pulling for that FR unless you're crazy like me. So that's going to be all for today's video. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Fujin and Caius, and maybe you're actually looking to this banner for Sid, considering he gets his enhancement, his force enhancements here. Perhaps you're looking at those. Do you think that you'll be pulling for Fujin's FR even though she's not that great because you're kind of collecting them all, or is this one that you're kind of happy to leave to the side in favour of waiting for Charlotta in the next banner? Let me know in the comments below what you think. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications, and fingers crossed, by the time this video is uploaded, my internet is fixed and I can get back to working and streaming again. So thank you all very much for joining me today, and I shall see you very soon. Take care, beautiful. Have a great day.